My name is Hannah, and this is my year of less stuff. Hey y'all, welcome to my June check-in video. I'm a bit tardy, we're already almost 10 days into July, but c'est la vie, especially considering how my V has been going lately, and that is what I am going to be telling you about. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what I've been thinking about lately in the month of June and really the beginning of July. I'm also going to tell you how my ever-changing life is going, and then I will update you on the progress of my budget and my year of less stuff. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I'm Hannah. I love beautiful things, but I don't love overspending on beautiful things. So this channel is in many ways about keeping a balance between the love of beauty and the genuine value that beautiful things can add to our lives and financial responsibility. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe to my channel. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So the first thing I want to talk about in this check-in is something that I was thinking about a lot in June and that I have continued to think about, and that is the Black Lives Matter movement and the renewed enthusiasm for anti-racism in America. I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement burned so brightly there for a couple of weeks, but the urgency of it is already fading from social media, even though the problems that we were protesting are far from solved. So the question that I was asking myself in June and that I'm asking myself now and that I want to talk about briefly is, what do we do? What do we do now? I think a lot of you guys already know this, but I come from a long tradition of protest for social justice. If you saw my vlog where I went to the mountains of North Carolina to the vow renewal ceremony of my parents' friends, then you will have seen my sister and me talking about the times that my dad protested nuclear weapons in the 70s by chaining himself to a power plant and got arrested with his friends a couple of times for that kind of protest. My family is Quaker, so we have a strong belief in active, nonviolent resistance. And when I was a kid, I watched my parents work for social justice, and I even saw them sometimes put their bodies in the path of violence, like non-violently put their bodies in the path of potential violence to stand up for human rights. And I've been going to protest ever since I was a little kid. But that also means that I've spent the whole 35 years of my life watching protests come and go, watching the passion for individual movements grow very brightly and then fade, and watching change happen in fits and starts, and sometimes unrelatedly, over time, and watching the causes of specific human rights progress and then sometimes regress, depending on who's elected and depending on the level of fear of any given population at any given time. I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes I feel jaded about the effect of protest on systems. And maybe it's just because some of our systems are so badly broken, and the more you learn about them, the more intimidating they become, and the harder it becomes to believe that something like protest, especially in light of having seen these cycles come and go throughout my whole life, can have the desired effect. But I don't like that about myself. I don't like that jadedness in myself, because I still strongly believe in the importance and meaning of protest. And that's something that I've had to face in myself, that I was struggling with in June and that I'm still thinking about. Right now, the thing that I am really excited about is that so many amazing organizations that are fighting racism and fighting police brutality specifically have been flooded with donations. When I was trying to decide where to donate the money from auctioning off the Black Lives Matter banner that I made, it was tough because so many organizations were already stuffed pretty much to capacity with donations. I can't wait to see what blooms from those resources. I'm excited to find out what will come of that. And I guess I am, in spite of my jadedness, tentatively hopeful that the slow ball of systemic change is starting to roll on the issue of police brutality. But racism doesn't just live in our systems and in our police force. It lives in our population. It lives in people. And one of the things that I was really excited about when everyone was paying attention to Black Lives Matter and posting about it was that people were being held accountable to themselves inside of themselves. For a couple of weeks there, the media that we turned to for escapism wasn't an escape. It was a crucible of education and introspection and empowerment. And then it just snapped back to being the way that it has always been. hence my tendency towards jadedness. So what can we do? What can we do now? I'm asking that question in this check-in because it's the question that occupied my mind for much of June, and this is my June check-in. And I also have two answers, or it's kind of like a two-part answer that I'm going to give now. It's what I've been thinking about. It's the answer that I've come up with for myself. And then we can continue the discussion in the comments, of course, because I would love to know what you all have to say about this. Firstly, the system. Just keep an eye on the system, the trials, the laws, the issues. Know for yourself whether or not that slow ball of change is moving forward on this issue or not. Don't just forget about it. Be registered to vote. And if you can apply for a vote by mail ballot, I know that you can't do that in all states, but there are many states, I believe, in which you usually go to the polls to vote, but you can apply for a vote by mail ballot if the circumstances are somewhat extraordinary, which they are right now, and they may continue to be through November. If you can do it, just cover your bases and do it now. Do it early. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in terms of systemic change, make sure that your voice will be heard in the election in November. And maybe think outside the box a little bit about what you might have to do to make sure that your voice will be heard. But systemic change comes from other places too. And the second answer, or the second part of the answer that I've come up with for myself, has to do with that thing that we had for a moment. That thing that it felt like we had for those few weeks. It felt like we had society-wide accountability and awareness. I think that what was going on was that for those weeks when the movement was really hot, a lot of white people didn't have to work extra hard to think about racial injustice. We were being helped to think about it because thinking about it was everywhere we looked. And now we have the option to go back to not thinking about it all the time. It sounds horrible to say it that way, but it is undeniably true. It's the amnesia of privilege. And my suggestion to other white people is to not take advantage of that, to resist the temptation to take advantage of that option. The moment is fading, but the resources are endless, and they're not all academic, and they're not all difficult. If you're not up for reading White Fragility right now, which is a book I do suggest reading, and I'll link it down below, but if you're not up for reading it today, if you want to read a science fiction novel today, then pick a science fiction novel that was written by a Black writer. Black brilliance abounds across all platforms and all art forms, and there's no excuse for not making it part of our white lives. There are so many ways in your daily life, in the daily activities that you already do, in the types of media and art that you love to consume already. There are so many ways inside of that to find the edge of your own knowledge and push at that edge and expand your capacity for understanding and empathy. Obviously, that's not the whole solution to the problem of racial inequality, but I've been asking myself over and over again what I can do and what I can talk about on YouTube. And that's the part of the answer that I decided to share today. So I'm going to put some links down below, things that I enjoy, that I've been watching and reading, and that I recommend. I'll put them in the description box, and I'll also put them in a pinned comment. And I would love to hear suggestions from other people, from all of you out there watching. What are the forms of Black brilliance that are lighting up your lives these days? So that has been a lot on my mind. That's a lot of what occupied my thoughts in June. Let's move on to talking about my personal life. So the shape of my life, my current situation. In terms of those things, I'm still smack dab in the middle of a very, very long moment of transformation. So in last month's check-in, I told you guys that Joe and I decided to suspend operations of our clothing business, at least until the end of the year, and then we're going to reconnoiter. And so we're in the process of moving out of our commercial space because we can't continue to rent the studio that we were using for the business while we're not running the business. And it's looking like after we finish that big project, which is going to take until the end of this month, we will likely move out of our apartment too. Before the pandemic, living here in this space made sense for like 1,000 reasons. But basically what has happened is that the pandemic has come along and swiftly dispatched 999 of those reasons. It just doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't add up. It is weird, I'm realizing, like as I do it, it is weird to talk about something like this on the internet when we're in the middle of it, like we don't really know what we're doing next. We're halfway through the decision. Usually I don't tell you guys that I'm halfway through a decision when I'm making it. I usually wait till the decision's made and then tell you. But this stuff is taking so long to decide, and this year is so weird and these circumstances are so unprecedented that I feel like I can at least tell you this much. I just spilled water on myself. I hope it's not showing. But I have to say, and this is something that I also want you guys to know, that even though I do really love this space and I will be sad to leave it, it's not all bad. I think that there's a way in which I thrive on change. That's part of why I have so many different kinds of makeup. It's something we've been talking about recently here on this channel. And Joe and I are currently entertaining possibilities for our future that we've never entertained before. Our minds have been opened by this. And there are also a bunch of little anxieties that used to plague me all the time that have kind of fallen away in the face of larger concerns. I feel like every day I wake up and I have the option of dwelling in the panic and uncertainty and kind of shutting down, or I have the option of paying attention to the way in which my life has been opened and kind of liquefied by this and just going with the flow. Does that mean that I haven't been having anxiety dreams and feeling weird and going through brief periods of melancholia? Of course it doesn't mean that. I have been having anxiety dreams and feeling weird and going through brief periods of melancholia. The national news is very dark right now, and it's hard not to worry about all manner of things. I mean, uncertainty brings all manner of little worries along with it too. I'm just happy to report that amidst the worries, Joe and I are finding ways to feel excited about the possibilities of this strangely uncertain and fluid future. The weirdest thing about this transition is that it's very, very long. Usually when we've been in transition, it's been brief. It's like we've planned and planned and planned from one spot, we've made the change, and then we've been in another spot. And right now, we've known that change is happening for a long time, and we haven't known what the change would look like for a long time. So it's like months and months of just sort of whirling and waiting and trying different configurations in our minds and not having decided yet. And that has never really happened. And the obvious drawback to that for a YouTube channel like this and for check-ins like this is that I can't tell you all that much that's concrete. For months now, I've been coming on here and saying, my life is changing dramatically, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to turn out. And yet again today, I'm sitting down and saying that again. When we make very concrete decisions, like the decision to suspend operations for our clothing business, then I can report back about them on camera. It's just these decisions are taking a really long time to make. It's this long, drawn out, protracted process. And so that means that I feel kind of like the rug was pulled out from under me, and I've been flung into the air by it, and I'm like falling in very, very, very slow motion over a period of months. That's kind of how it feels. And so from that position, all I can do is report back to you by saying, like, still falling, haven't hit the ground yet. Not sure when I do hit the ground if it's going to be a comfy mattress, if it's going to be some leaves, if it's going to be a garbage dump, or if it's going to be like a grassy area. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but still falling. So optimistic. Let's briefly talk about my budgeting. Very boring this month in a way. I am going to film the video about the things that I bought with my budget in June after I filmed this video, and it's very, very little. I didn't even replace anything in June. I really didn't spend very much money in June, and I didn't buy very many things that are of interest to my channel, to my budget, etc. And I'll talk in that video about the thoughts that I've been having about budgeting, because June was a month in which I bought almost nothing and didn't even want to buy everything, but it was also the month in which I filmed that video series about how I spent, no, not how I spent my budget, about what I bought at Sephora in the year of 2017. And that was quite the contrast. So I'll actually just save the processing of all of that for that video, because I'm going to have barely anything to talk about in that video otherwise, because I really didn't buy very many things with my budget in June. The year of less stuff, though, it's kind of a different story. I do feel like I have something to report. I feel like I have something to tell you. My feelings about it have been changing, and they've gotten to the point where they have changed a lot. In short, I just don't care as much. I just can't care as much about this project that I fashioned for myself 6 months ago at the beginning of this year. Because when I fashioned the project, when I started out the year, I thought that I was going to be in the same place at the end of the year that I was at the beginning of the year. I just did not anticipate my life changing so dramatically this year. I mean, I think none of us did. Like, nobody knew that this was going to happen. But it really has affected the inner workings of my life and the logistics of my life very much. And as I just said, I still don't really know how it's all going to come out. It has really made the year of less stuff seem less consequential. Like, it's getting to the point where the project itself feels inconsequential to me. When I came up with this project, I was anticipating that I would be in the same apartment with the same stuff and the same furniture and the same everything all year, and that the flow of PR and purchases into my life and out of my life would be the one single factor that I was having to negotiate with to avoid drowning in a pile of stuff. That was the year that I saw ahead of me in terms of stuff, and that was why I engineered the project the way that I did. Now, I have no idea where I'm going to be in December of this year, and PR has really come in fits and starts, and a lot of it sort of fallen through the cracks. Some PR got returned to sender during the period of time when we didn't have access to our commercial space and PR was still being mailed there. And I just can't bring myself to care. I don't care. I don't care where it went or whether it came here. And my budget spending was big in the first couple of months of the year, but in recent months has just fallen off and again become something that's so small and not stressful and not really putting pressure on me in any way. Stuff just matters so much less to me right now than it did before the pandemic. And it's all aspects of it. So wanting it, wanting to buy it, being obsessed with buying it, wanting to get it in PR, being excited about getting it in PR, feeling ashamed of it, feeling like I have too much of it, feeling ashamed of my feelings about it, wanting to give it away, wanting to control the stream of it into my life, like all of the positive and negative, like the stress, the excited, the positive stress, and the distress, the negative stress, all of the stress surrounding all of the stress surrounding stuff. And admittedly, I came into this year with a very high level of stress surrounding stuff, hence the project. But the volume on that stress level has just been turned way, 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 way down. And I've got to say, that is great. That is great for me. I'm very pleased with that state of things, even though I didn't, if I had known that that was what I truly wanted, then maybe I would have engineered a project that facilitated that. I haven't even really been keeping up with counting this stuff. I mean, I will recount it at the end of the year, but I just don't have the enthusiasm anymore for that kind of monitoring. I have been giving a lot of stuff away. I have even given some stuff away without reckoning with it on camera. I've just been like, oh, it's time to give this to someone, I'm going to give it away. And I haven't felt stressed out about that either. I've just been very relaxed, much more relaxed than I anticipated being around my yearly project. On the one hand, I don't like not following through, although I don't really see that as what I'm doing. But you guys know that I really hate the feeling, although it has happened sometimes, that I haven't followed through with things that I've said I was going to do on YouTube. I really hate that feeling, even though it has happened from time to time. So there's that on the one hand. But on the other hand, it feels so healthy for me to be relaxed around these issues. And I don't really feel prepared to unpack all of that right now. I will probably do that at the end of the year because it's weird. This project has like morphed and changed and given me some unexpected insights. And that's the kind of thing that I'll really want to reconnoiter with at the end of the yearly project, because I am still going to follow through with it, like in letter, if not in spirit, if you know what I mean. Like I'll still count everything at the end of the year, wherever I am and whatever has gone down. I will wrap it up. I'm not abandoning the project. But I think a lot of you who've been following me, you'll kind of already get it. Like I think a lot of you get why this outcome, or what appears to be the outcome here in the very center of the year, this outcome of me just caring less or putting less pressure on myself, less stress on myself about this, you get why that's good. And you get why it kind of makes sense, even though I don't think I anticipated it. So I'm not going to let the project drop. It just feels like the stakes are much, much, much lower for this project than they felt at the beginning of the year when I engineered the project. I feel like I have bigger fish to fry. And they are fish that I could never have anticipated in January when I launched the year of less stuff. They are surprise fish. And that's kind of it for this check-in. I feel like that says it all. I'm frying surprise fish and they are big ones. Sadie really loves it when I clean the sleep out of her eyes. It's like one of my main jobs as her mom. And she loves it so much. She always looks at me with the love light in her eyes after I do it. So I'm frying big surprise fish. I'm not sure when they will be done frying, probably in a couple of months, and I will keep you updated, of course. And in the meantime, I am so glad to have this YouTube channel and to have you guys. You are my sous chefs as I fry these big fish, to extend the metaphor horribly. And I really, really mean that, especially my Patreon patrons. Huge shout out to my Patreon patrons. Just briefly, I've already written them a long love note on Patreon, but I want the world to know how much that support is meaning to me these days, especially emotionally and psychologically. People are supporting my work actively with some of their own resources. And I didn't realize until this month when I sat down to do those videos about my Sephora spending in 2017, I didn't realize how much that was meaning to me. I mean, it really has changed my little world over here. It's changed the way that I conceive of the work that I'm doing. It's changed my energy around the work that I do on YouTube. Those videos about my Sephora spending were hard in a couple of ways. Like, it was hard to get them out. The Q&A was really hard. It was hard to admit some of the stuff that was in there, and to make sure that I was delivering the information in the way that I wanted to deliver it. It took a lot of preparation, and it took a lot of girding my loins to get it up to film it and then to get it up to post it. And the whole time I was just thinking about my Patreon patrons and feeling their support, and their support is what got me through it. So thank you guys so much, those of you who are my patrons. I mean, you already know, I already told you, you already know. I just wanted to say it one more time on camera, loud and clear for everyone to hear. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you all, everyone who supports me in any way, even if it's just coming here and watching my videos. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. I really, really appreciate you. And I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself today so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.